This is BBC News, I'm Chris Rogers. Our top stories. The UN says it will reveal more details about Myanmar's alleged crimes against Rohingya Muslims. We have a special report from a refugee camp under pressure. The UK police raid a third property and continue to question two men over a bomb attack on a London tube train. And from the drama of The Handmaid's Tale to the politics of satire, the Emmys recognise the best of American TV.
Hello, I'm Sally Bundock. With the business stories, Theresa May heads to Canada to secure ties. But why is she set to interfere in a trade dispute involving US and Canadian aerospace companies? And we messed up. Ryanair blames an error in the planning of its pilots' holidays for a debacle which has left tens of thousands of passengers stranded and created a PR nightmare for Europe's biggest airline.
Hello and welcome to BBC News. The United Nations is due to present a report later into alleged crimes by Myanmar's security forces against Rohingya Muslims. It's warned the country's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, that she has one last chance to end the military offensive that's forced 400,000 Rohingyas to flee to neighbouring Bangladesh. The ultimatum comes just a day before Aung San Suu Kyi is due to address her nation. Our correspondent, Jonathan Head, reports now from the Bangladeshi border.
On the muddy shore of Bangladesh's southernmost point, the stream of Muslims seeking safety never stops. This is one of the places where the boats bring them in. And on the other side of the Naf River, still the fires burn.
It is astonishing that more than 3 weeks after the violence broke out in Rakhine State, we're still seeing these incredible numbers of people coming across the Naf River looking for shelter here in Bangladesh. But with so much of the Rohingya population already in this country, the chance of another military operation inside Myanmar is reaching its natural end. As far as the Burmese military is concerned, these people are a historical problem that's now been fixed.
Mushtaq and his family have just arrived. His home was burnt down 3 weeks ago, he said. He'd sought shelter in 4 other villages inside Myanmar before being forced to flee to Bangladesh. But he has no idea where they will live. The camps that have sprung up to house previous waves of Rohingyas are already horribly overcrowded. Hafiz Manjur has come here to try to find a home for himself and his pregnant wife. He arrived from Myanmar a week ago after a harrowing journey. He filmed parts of it. He's tried 3 other camps, but is having no luck.
Gosh, there's a lot of people there, all on the move.
We've been living in other people's houses, he told me. We had to leave my mother in Myanmar. We need to find somewhere we can house her as well, but we don't have much money. Bangladesh doesn't want these people settling here. Instead, it's planning to build a huge camp for all 400,000 new arrivals and to confine them there. It's a drastic step for a country that feels its hospitality has already been stretched too far. Jonathan Head, BBC News, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh.
Well, we'll have more on this story a bit later. Here in the UK, police investigating Friday's bomb attack on the London Underground have been searching a third address. The BBC understands it's a fried chicken shop in West London. 2 other properties have been searched nearby, and 2 men aged 21 and 18 are being questioned on suspicion of terrorism offences. Andy Moore reports.
Late on Saturday night, a second man is arrested in the centre of Hounslow in connection with the tube bombing. This is no ordinary detention. At least 3 forensic officers check the man over for any evidence before he's taken away. He's 21 years old and believed to be a Syrian refugee who used to live in Sunbury alongside the first man detained at Dover. The suspect was arrested just before midnight on Saturday outside these shutters. For several hours yesterday, police were carrying out an investigation and a search at this chicken shop next door. A number of detectives left late last night carrying several items in bags for further examination, including what seemed to be a television or computer monitor. The connection between this Middle Eastern chicken shop and the arrested man is unclear. But he's believed to have lived at this location in nearby Stanwell, very close to the perimeter of Heathrow Airport. Neighbours described him as a quiet man who never caused any trouble. The focus of the most intensive police search is Sunbury, where an 18-year-old refugee thought to be from Iraq shared a home with his elderly foster parents. These CCTV images obtained by ITV News show a young man leaving the back of that house very early on Friday morning with a distinctive little carrier bag. 90 minutes later, a bucket bomb inside a very similar bag went up in flames on the floor of a tube train at Parsons Green. The police investigation is by no means over, but the reduction in the terror threat level means the authorities believe there is no longer an imminent risk of another attack. Andy Moore, BBC News.
Business news shortly. Let's just have a look at some of the stories making the news. A third day of protests is underway in the American city of St. Louis following the acquittal of Jason Stotley, a white former police officer who killed a black man, Anthony Lamar Smith, in 2011. Now, the demonstration did begin peacefully, but police say some protesters have been breaking shop windows and throwing objects at officers. There was similar violence on Friday and Saturday as well. A powerful storm in Romania has killed 8 people and injured many more. Winds of up to 100 kilometres an hour brought down trees and tore off roofs as it pounded the area around the western city of Timisoara. Some water and electricity supplies have been cut off. The US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says Washington is considering closing its embassy in Cuba. More than 20 of its staff there have reported health conditions, including permanent hearing loss and nausea, caused by what the US is calling a sonic attack. The embassy only opened in 2015 after an historic shift in relations under President Obama. Sally is here now with all the business news. What have you got for us, Sally?
Well, this is an interesting one. A bit of a trade spat going on between the US and Canada, and the UK Prime Minister is getting involved. I will explain. So Theresa May is seeking to exert some influence on the fraught issue of trade relations between the States and Canada. At stake is a dispute over state subsidies involving the Canadian plane firm Bombardier, who brought by rival US plane maker Boeing. So today she'll discuss the issue with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa. So why is she getting involved? Well, back in 2016, Bombardier won a contract to supply over 100 C-series passenger jets to the US airline Delta. Its American rival Boeing complained to US authorities the deal was unfairly subsidized by the Canadian government. So later this month, the US Department of Commerce could impose punitive tariffs on Bombardier. Now, Theresa May recently called US President Trump to ask him to intervene in this dispute. At issue is the protection of some 4,000 jobs at the Bombardier plant in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Now, the subject of jobs and Northern Ireland's economy is particularly important to Theresa May, of course, because her government currently relies on votes from Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party to pass legislation through the House of Commons here in the UK. So the DUP is propping up Theresa May's government right now as it negotiates Brexit. And the UK government is desperately trying to show that it's in a post-Brexit world. It can make its own trade and business deals and allegiances. It's crucially important it stays on a very good terms with both the Canadians and the Americans. We'll be getting an expert view on that in World Business Report. Also, very quickly, Ryanair is going to be a week of cancellations at the company. It's a massive PR nightmare for the company. The budget carrier announced Saturday it would cancel 40 to 50 flights every day for the next 6 weeks. The reason why is facing a massive backlog of staff leave, which means their pilots need to take their holidays. As always, there's a lot more to this. I will explain further in World Business Report. So I will see you in about 20 minutes, though. But now back to Chris.
Sally, thank you. The wife of the ousted Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has won by a by-election that was triggered when he stood down after being disqualified from public office. Now, unofficial results show that Kulsum Nawaz had a comfortable win in her husband's heartland of Lahore. As Andrew Plant reports, it was seen as a test of support for the Sharif family ahead of next year's general election.
Voters going to the polls in Pakistan under the watchful eyes of armed police, this by-election seen as highly sensitive. The parliamentary seat they're voting on used to belong to Pakistan's former Prime Minister, Nawaz Sharif. It became vacant when he resigned in July, disqualified from office by Pakistan's Supreme Court after an investigation into his finances.
Come out of your houses, cast your votes. Use your right to vote for a better future for your children.
Former cricketer Imran Khan's opposition party fielding one of 45 candidates for the seat, but many expressed their intentions to vote for Kulsum Nawaz, the wife of the former Prime Minister.
As far as I am concerned, he is not disqualified. He was our Prime Minister yesterday and he will be the Prime Minister tomorrow. We are all with him.
Early results suggest that Kulsum Nawaz has won the most votes, a signal that the ruling party and the Sharif family still have strong support in Lahore and a country now focused on a general election next year. Andrew Plant, BBC News.
The BBC's Secunda Kamani joins me now from Islamabad. Secunda, it seems quite obvious from that report that all involved, including the public, very much saw this as a referendum on the disqualification of the former Prime Minister.
Yes, that's right. Both the ruling PMLN party and the leading political opposition, the PTI, had cast this as effectively the people's verdict on the disqualification of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. And both sides, I think, are claiming some sort of victory from this result. The PMLN party have said that the fact that they won the election, they won the vote, shows that the majority of the Pakistani public believes their narrative, which is that Nawaz Sharif was disqualified as part of a political conspiracy against him. However, their majority in this election decreased significantly. From around 60% of the votes, they went down to around 48% of the votes. And that's in a seat that's long been a stronghold of the Sharif family. So Imran Khan's PTI's party has said that this shows that they're making inroads into support for the ruling party. And this could be replicated on a wider scale in next year's general election. In fact, though, the PTI party only increased their share of the vote by quite a small margin, around 2%. And the majority of new votes went to two new religious right-wing parties, and they for the first time, contested these elections, and they won around 10% of the votes.
So, kind of, when people are voting in by-elections or general elections in Pakistan, what are the main issues that are important to the people of the country?
Well, this was certainly cast, although it's a by-election, this was certainly cast as a one on national issues, and it was cast by both parties around the issue of the former Prime Minister's disqualification. Now, what a lot of people are interested to see is how much this issue of Nawaz Sharif's disqualification really resonates with the public, or how much of their concerns really revolve around access to clean water, access to electricity, for example. And so I think the ruling party, the PMLN party, in the past had certainly looked to say, don't worry, don't concentrate on these corruption allegations, look at all the achievements that we've made in Pakistan. But we'll see what happens in the 2018 general elections, which should be taking place next summer.
So, kind of, many thanks for that. Do stay with us here at BBC News if you can. Still to come, tracking the little dodo, the high-tech mission to save an elusive national bird.
30 hours after the earthquake that devastated Mexico City, rescue teams still have no idea just how many people have died.
Well, there is people alive and there is people not alive.
We just can help and give whatever we got.
It looked as though they had come to fight a war, but their mission is to bring peace to East Timor, and nowhere on earth needs it more badly.
The government's case is being forcefully presented by Monsieur Badinter, the Justice Minister. He's campaigned vigorously for abolition, having once witnessed one of his clients being executed.
Elizabeth Seton spent much of her time at this grotto, and every year hundreds of pilgrimages are made here. Now that she's become a saint, it's expected that this area will be inundated with tourists. The mayor and local businessmen regard the anticipated boom as yet another blessing of St. Elizabeth.
This is BBC News. Let's have a look at the latest headlines now. And our main story is that the UN says it will reveal more details about Myanmar's alleged crimes against Rohingya Muslims. Bangladesh says it needs more aid for its refugee camps. So we're going to get more on the latest developments regarding the plight of the Rohingyas. Phil Robertson is the Deputy Asia Director of Human Rights Watch. The organisation has called on the international community to impose a new arms embargo and targeted sanctions on Myanmar, amongst many other things. Thanks for joining us. So today we're finally going to hear more from the UN on what it thinks is happening in Myanmar, its first oral report. What do you expect to hear, or I suppose, what would you like to hear from the UN today?
Well, I think that we've already heard from the UN Secretary General and the High Commissioner for Refugees that what we're seeing here is ethnic cleansing, and we agree with that assessment. The question is now, what does the UN expect member states to do? And that is the tricky question, because so far we have not seen anywhere near the level that we wanted of reaction to these atrocities being committed against the Rohingya. There has to be a much higher level of response. There has to be a much more engaged international community that is prepared to very clearly to the Burmese generals who are persecuting the Rohingya that there are going to be costs if you continue, and that ultimately this will not stand. These people have to be allowed back. There has to be support provided for them, and ultimately there has to be a place for them in Burma.
This crisis didn't just emerge last week, last month, or even particularly this year. It certainly got worse over the last few months. Why do you think it is that the UN itself, as well as its member countries, are being so slow to react and to actually do something?
Well, I think that they were hoping that Burma, which had been a human rights basket case for decades, was finally on the way out of that, you know, it was going to become a member of the international community with respect and standing and play an important role in Asia. And I think that they're concerned that this is all sliding backwards, and they want to try to give the Burmese a chance to pull out. And, you know, they want to give Aung San Suu Kyi a chance. I mean, I think if that we didn't have the civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi here, a lot of people would have been much more willing to condemn the government. And so there's, I think, sort of a situation where they're hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. And, you know, we're in the same boat. We're looking at that. And we're looking at what do we need to do to put pressure on the military while trying to encourage Aung San Suu Kyi to do the right thing.
Yeah, well, we're going to hear from Aung San Suu Kyi as well in that nationally televised speech later. The backdrop is the UN oral report today. More satellite images released from you of burning villages of Rohingya people. What do you think Aung San Suu Kyi is likely to say today? Do you think she's now going to feel the pressure to act?
Well, we hope so. I think that she needs to recognize that her international reputation is now on the line. And if that's important to her, then she has to find a way to balance the lack of popularity that the Rohingya enjoy inside Burma with a need to pressure the military to respect human rights. You know, she knows very well what this military is capable of, and we're seeing the worst of it right now. And so instead of remaining silent and giving the impression that she's complicit with this, she has to speak out and somehow differentiate her position from theirs and figure out how to apply some degree of pressure on the military to stop these abuses.
Andrew, many thanks for your time there. Phil Robinson, Deputy Asia Director of Human Rights Watch. Thank you. Let's have a look at some sport now. And in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton won the Singapore Grand Prix to extend his lead in the Drivers' Championship. It came after a chaotic start to the race where Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen wiped each other out before the first turn. Red Bull's Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso were also caught up in the carnage. It has been extinct for around 400 years, but its closest relative, known as the little dodo, the national bird of Samoa, survives for now. But do people even know what to look out for? David Aids reports.
Samoa, a Pacific island rich in exotic flora and fauna and home to the manu mea, the only place on the planet you can find it. But the little dodo, as it's fondly called, is very shy and very rare.
For almost a decade ago, we've been searching so hard for manu mea, just to get a photo of it or just to confirm hearing the calls if it's actually present or not.
And this is really the only proof it is still around. One solitary photo of a scruffy juvenile spotted 4 years ago. Beyond that, drawings are the best bet, and they're displayed like a missing person's photo fit to villagers and hunters in a drive to pick up every clue as to its lifestyle and whereabouts.
They are really on the brink. You know, there are, people say, they estimate there's less than 300, there could well be less than 150 left, and they know so little about it that, you know, it's really going to be touch and go.
It is ironic that we know more about the look and the life of the dodo itself, which disappeared hundreds of years ago. Well, the manu mea is as close a relative as you get. It's also tooth-billed, and it's as happy on the forest floor as it is up a tree, which is why it's so vulnerable.
We'll just put it somewhere by the tree.
In the forests, conservationists lay out sound recorders hoping to pick up the manu mea's call, aware that hunters may have had more luck finding it, even shooting it by mistake for a tastier local pigeon. This is not a lucky bird. And Auckland Zoo is helping to track and remove the rats and wild cats keen to snack on the bird and its eggs. It's no easy task, but it is worth it. This is the latest effort to showcase the manu mea to Samoans who've never actually seen their national emblem in the flesh. And without some breakthrough in the next few years, this could be the closest Samoans will ever get to their own national treasure. David Eads, BBC News.
The US television industry has been patting itself on the back with the Primetime Emmy Awards. Some are calling this the golden age of TV, so who ended up winning the big prizes? Well, the BBC's Jane Cook can tell us about an evening of stars, awards and a bit of politics.
Yes, I mean, a fairly liberal, left-leaning Hollywood elite in the audience and watching to a certain extent on television, although you always wonder how President Trump's supporters take these shows, if indeed many of them watch them at all. But we did start with Stephen Colbert, the host, satirising Donald Trump in song, making reference to various events in the news, not least the investigation into alleged links which the president denies between Russia and his administration. But then we've gone on a long way from there, and we have now come to the end of the show. And let me just quickly rattle through the big winners for you. And The Handmaid's Tale, the dystopian drama, is probably the big winner of the night in terms of one single category, winning Best Drama Series. Nicole Kidman took lead actress in a limited series or TV movie for Big Little Lies, a black comedy drama on HBO, which also did well. Elizabeth Moss winning lead actress for drama for The Handmaid's Tale. Lead actor for a drama went to Sterling K. Brown for his role in the family drama This Is Us. Big Little Lies also winning limited series. Comedy series went to Veep, and TV movie went to Black Mirror San Junipero, which was made by the British satirist Charlie Brooker.
James Cook reporting there from Los Angeles. Just a reminder of our main news here at the BBC. The UN is due to present a report later into alleged crimes by Myanmar's security forces against Rohingya Muslims. It's warned the country's de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi that she has one last chance to end the military offensive that's forced 400,000 Rohingyas to flee to neighbouring Bangladesh this year. The ultimatum comes just a day before Aung San Suu Kyi is due to address her nation on television. Well, don't forget you can get in touch with me and the team on Twitter. My handle is @ChrisRogersBBC. We'll be back in a moment.
After a weekend of sunny spells and scattered showers, that's how the new working week starts. But through the week after that cool, showery sort of start, there'll be a little bit of rain, mainly in the west during the middle part of the week. But temperatures will be on the rise, things warming up as we look towards the end of this week. So what we've got at the moment is high pressure building in from the west, low pressure sitting in the east, and that combination of pressure systems means a northerly breeze blowing down the east coast. That's importing a few showers to eastern Scotland and eastern England. But elsewhere, mostly dry to start Monday morning. There's quite a bit of mist, fog, murkiness around, so a bit of a grey start, I think, but it will brighten up. Chance of the odd shower across coastal parts of Wales and the southwest of England, but most places dry. Few showers for southeast England and East Anglia. After that murky start, the fog and the low clouds should start to break up. Brighter skies across North Wales, northern England and Northern Ireland, where it will be a dry, bright start, if somewhat chilly first thing. Fairly chilly to start the day for Scotland too, with some misty patches, particularly in the west, and a few showers towards the northeast of Scotland. Now that northerly breeze will continue to import a few showers around eastern coast, and then more widely inland we'll see a few cropping up during the afternoon, but some sunshine in between, many of us avoiding the showers altogether, particularly further west across West Wales, Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. You're likely to stay largely dry. Temperatures for most of us 15 to 18 degrees. If you do catch a shower, could be heavy, potentially an odd rumble of thunder. A little bit cooler where we've got that breeze across eastern Scotland and northeast England. Overnight, a bit more persistent rain makes its way south across the eastern half of the country, but it clears away during the early hours of Tuesday. So once again, it's going to turn chilly by dawn on Tuesday, particularly in the countryside. Temperatures just a few degrees above freezing, so they could be low enough for a touch of frost towards the north and the northwest. Now, during Tuesday, we're likely to lose that front quickly from the southeast, and then a ridge of high pressure dominates the weather. That means Tuesday quite widely is looking like a decent day across the country, probably the best day of the week. Just a bit breezy with a few showers in the far northwest later in the day. But for much of the country, we'll see temperatures 14 to 18 degrees. That should feel quite pleasant. Bye-bye.
A book can lead us to new worlds and experiences. But how can the words take us back to the ideas that brought it into being? How can the book guide us to the one who gave it shape and character? How can it show us the inspiration? Learn more about the book. Discover the writer who created it. We'll introduce you on Meet the Author, Thursday at 8:45 on the BBC News Channel.
Today, President Trump fulfilled one of his key election pledges.
James Comey told senators at a blockbuster hearing that Donald Trump lied about his firing.